Imagine this. A powerful black CEO boards his flight only to find a woman sitting in his seat. Sounds simple, right? But what happens next will leave you speechless. Minutes later, he makes a decision that no one saw coming, a move that sends shockwaves through the entire flight. Why did he do it? And what was the real reason behind his actions? Stay tuned, because this story will change the way you see power, respect, and authority. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. The morning buzzed with the usual airport chaos, people scurrying to catch flights, the low hum of chatter echoing through the terminals, and the occasional clatter of suitcase wheels against the hard floor. Among the crowd, Robert King, a successful CEO of a multinational corporation, was just another tired traveler looking to make his way back home after a long business trip. A routine flight, he thought. A moment to unwind before the board meeting tomorrow. But as he boarded the plane, something unexpected happened, a situation that would spiral out of control in ways he couldn't have imagined. Robert made his way down the aisle of the plane, eyes scanning for his seat. His thoughts drifted to the business challenges awaiting him back at the office, unaware that something was about to derail his quiet time. He reached his seat, an aisle seat, just the way he liked it, and paused. A woman, probably in her late 30s, was already sitting there. At first, Robert thought she must have made a mistake. People often sit in the wrong seats, it happens all the time. But as he neared, he noticed something different. The woman wasn't just sitting in his seat, she looked comfortable. Her back was relaxed, her arms folded casually, as if she had been there for much longer than the 10 minutes they had been waiting for boarding. "Excuse me," Robert said, trying to remain cordial. "I think you're in my seat." The woman didn't even look up. She was engrossed in a conversation with the flight attendant. Robert cleared his throat and repeated his statement, this time with a little more edge. "That's my seat." She finally turned her head, and for a brief moment, their eyes locked. A small smile tugged at her lips, but it wasn't a friendly smile, it was something different. Something smug. "No," she replied, her voice flat. "I'm sitting here." Robert was taken aback. This wasn't a typical response. People usually apologize and move when they realize they've made a mistake. But this woman wasn't budging. In fact, she seemed almost amused by the situation. Her tone was almost challenging. Robert felt a surge of frustration rising. He was the CEO of a major company. He had led teams, negotiated deals, and made decisions that affected thousands of people. And here he was, facing a woman in a plane seat, and she was not only refusing to move, but she was doing so with an air of indifference that stung him. He didn't want to escalate things, but he couldn't let this slide. "I have the ticket for this seat," Robert said, his voice now firm. "You need to move." The woman didn't flinch. Instead, she casually glanced at the flight attendant, who stood frozen, clearly uncomfortable in the face of the standoff. She shrugged, a gesture that spoke volumes, like she wasn't going anywhere. Robert's patience was wearing thin. He wasn't the type to be disrespected, especially in front of others. His mind began to race. He didn't want to make a scene, but something about this woman's defiance triggered a deep sense of discomfort in him. It was more than just a seating dispute, it felt personal. He didn't know why, but it felt as if she was challenging him, daring him to do something about it. Before he could think it through, he pressed the call button to summon the flight attendants. The cabin attendants quickly came over, their eyes darting between Robert and the woman. Robert explained the situation, asking them to resolve it. But then something completely unexpected happened. The woman didn't move. Instead, she turned to the attendants with an almost mocking expression and said, "I'm not moving. I'm not going to let anyone tell me where I can sit. Not today." Her words hung in the air like a challenge. The attendants seemed unsure how to respond. They had no clear policy for dealing with a passenger who was acting this way. Robert felt a mix of anger and confusion. How was this even happening? Why was she doing this? "I'm asking you to move." "This is my seat," Robert said, his tone now unwavering, but inside something was shifting. He realized he wasn't just asking her to move, he was fighting for something bigger. His authority. His position. His control over a situation that had spiraled out of control too quickly. The woman's response came with a laugh. You're just like every other man who thinks they can boss people around. I'm not moving." Her words were sharp, laced with contempt. It wasn't just about the seat anymore. It was about her power to stand her ground. It was about her power to stand her ground. And in that moment, it felt as if she held all the cards. Robert stared at her, stunned. The room felt smaller. The tension was palpable, and everyone in the cabin could sense it. The murmurs began. Some passengers exchanged glances, others tried to avert their eyes, clearly uncomfortable with what was unfolding. But no one moved. No one stepped in. It was just Robert and this woman locked in a silent duel of wills. He couldn't let it go. Not now. His pride, his position, his very identity had been questioned by a stranger. Something inside him snapped. In a calculated move, Robert pressed the intercom button, his voice cool but firm as it echoed through the cabin. "Captain, we need to land immediately. This flight is grounded." The words hit like a thunderclap. Silence. Passengers stopped talking, and the atmosphere in the cabin shifted instantly. Some passengers exchanged looks of confusion. Was this really happening? Was Robert serious? The woman's expression shifted. For the first time, she looked uncertain, her defiance faltering. The flight attendants, now visibly nervous, began to speak in hushed tones, trying to figure out what was going on. It was too late. Robert had made his decision, and there was no turning back. As the plane descended toward the nearest airport, the reality of what was happening set in. The woman, who moments ago had been so confident, now sat rigid in her seat, the color draining from her face. Robert didn't look at her. He simply sat back, waiting for the inevitable to unfold. When the plane touched down, emergency personnel were already waiting on the tarmac. The woman was escorted off the plane in silence, her defiant stance now shattered. As she was led away, Robert stayed seated, his hands folded in his lap. The flight attendants remained by his side, unable to look him in the eye. Outside, the news would spread like wildfire. Robert's decision to ground the plane over a seat dispute would become the talk of the day, splashed across headlines. The story would divide opinions. Some would see it as an act of justice, a man standing up for what was right. Others would call it an overreaction, an abuse of power. But for Robert, the battle had been about much more than a seat. As he walked through the airport, he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, knowing that he had taken control of the situation. But deep down, a gnawing question lingered in his mind. Was it truly about the seat? Or was it about something much deeper? Something that, perhaps, he couldn't yet put into words. The incident didn't just end there. It sparked conversations across the country, social media debates, and endless articles dissecting the drama. People didn't just talk about the flight, they talked about the power dynamics, the struggle for control, the way authority can be tested in the most unexpected places. Robert had become the focal point of an entire social conversation, a symbol of something larger than just one confrontation. For the woman, however, the fallout was much more personal. She never expected the situation to escalate in such a way, and her actions that day would become a cautionary tale for many. But for Robert, the whole experience was a reminder of the fragility of power, how quickly it could be challenged, how easily it could slip from your hands. In the end, it wasn't just a battle over a seat, it was a fight for respect. And Robert had won. Thanks for watching. If you were as shocked as I was, don't forget to subscribe, the Black Visionaries family, and hit the bell icon for more unbelievable stories like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Until next time, stay aware and stay tuned.